In this podcast, try out the draw against Coventry, the playoffs, they're happening, and answer your podcast questions. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and this is our Boro Matchday Chatter in a pod.
Support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Ravanelli coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Ravanelli spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast with Jonny, Dana, and not Tom. We've hid him somewhere where only you, the listener, can find him. Let us know in the comments below where you will know he will be.
Where's Wally, but where's Tom?
But where is he? He is somewhere in the multiverse. He was here yesterday, but we had a lot of tech issues and we are having to re-record, which is great. But let's chat about Middlesbrough because we drew 1-1 yesterday at the Riverside Stadium, confirming our playoffs, which we did a few weeks ago. And we are now playing Coventry another 2 times, which is exciting. And also Sunderland, God help us all, in the playoffs as well. But I think we will beat them. Yes, I did say that. But anyway, Dana, the season, well, the 46-game season is now finished. And I want to know how you're feeling in 46 words. I'm joking. How you feeling in 3 words. How are you feeling about the 46-game season in 3 words?
I'm going to say appreciative of the turnaround, or appreciative of turnaround, because I remember when I went to the CBS earlier this season and Boro played Coventry, and we looked a million miles away from being a playoff standard team. And I looked at the stats at that point. We were 11 games in, 3rd bottom, 10 points accumulated. It was our worst start to a season since 1985-86. And I really want the listeners to think back to that time, maybe even pause this podcast for a second and really try to remember how they were feeling at that point. Because I can guarantee it wasn't positive, because it wasn't positive for me. I mean, I looked back and listened back to a few of our podcast episodes, and there were buzzwords like hollow, empty, disconnected. There was apathy, was the title of one of our episodes. And sometimes I feel like I lean into the overly emotional side, you know, the double water sign in me, but I don't think that I was really too overly emotional at that point, because it was just how I was feeling. And it was, I guess, the general consensus amongst the fan base is that Boro weren't really going anywhere. And I know we were in the bottom 3. I was never resigned to any potential of Boro getting relegated, but I certainly did not think that we'd be in this position that we are in now. The fact that we've got an additional 2 games on top of the 46 games that we've watched this season, I would have never thought that back then. So I've seen a few people maybe panicking, being a bit negative, being a bit critical after the past couple of weeks, but just think back to that reverse fixture against Coventry. The trajectory that both sides have been on is testament to both managers, and Michael Carrick and co, Aaron Danks and Jonathan Woodgate as well. Just hats off to them, because I never thought that we'd be in the playoff picture back in October. So it's just been a really fantastic season, and I'm so happy, so appreciative, so grateful, and so excited for the playoffs.
Yeah, and we've both went pretty sizzler over the second half of the season, and it's been a really good, exciting season, probably across this league. And I was saying today that I think every division this year in English football has had a lot of excitement, which is unheard of. Really, it hasn't really been a boring league, which is great. And I think my 3 words would be excited for playoffs. And I know we said playoffs could be a 1 or 2 words, but I'm counting it as 1, and you can't do anything about it. And you know, we're excited. I think we can hopefully get something good against them next week at the Ricoh Arena. I'm going to call it the Ricoh Arena. It's the Ricoh Arena. And hopefully we can take some at the Riverside and get something and go to Wembley Way, which would be fantastic for us in the town. Hopefully we can, you never know, be in the Premier League again next season. But let's talk about the Coventry game, part 1 of 3 for this season in the space of a couple of weeks. But Hamer obviously give them the lead from a mistake from from Smith, and then they went on the counter, and he had a lovely strike in the bottom corner, but we got an equaliser from Cameron Archer, and we were pretty much like that Simpsons meme in the second half a little bit, or the video where they bring soccer to Springfield, and it's like past the centre, and teams didn't
I
really
know what
want
you
to
mean.
engage too much. Both injuries, and also both are very happy with the result, and that's cool. But Dana, what's your overall assessment of the game? Because I thought it was a little bit interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I quite liked their setup in the first half from just a tactical perspective. I thought it worked really well for them, even despite the goal that we scored just before half time. They were overloading the wide areas, particularly that right-hand side of ours, which seemed to be an area for them to target during that game. Whenever we were in possession on that flank, they were trying to negate what Boro tend to enjoy, that numerical advantage. And I think that's why we became a little bit sloppy when trying to transition. Boro do enjoy play when they have that numerical advantage in certain areas. So when we don't have that, and the opponent tries to negate that by crowding us out, I think it reduces our threat in those areas because it forces us to make quick decisions. And Boro are usually really good at making those quick decisions anyway when a team tries to push a lot of their players into those right side or the right hand half space as well. But we just needed to switch it a lot quicker than we did, because I think one of the negatives, or one of the potential negatives of playing and setting up the way that Coventry did and trying to overload one flank, is that the other flank will quite naturally be exposed. And I saw Ryan Giles in so much space throughout that first half. That big switch, that big diagonal was available, but Boro were being nullified and being chalked by Coventry, such was their really aggressive press in the game. And we didn't distribute it enough to effectively create some advantages on that left-hand side, which was being left a little bit exposed. And I think Coventry saw the benefits in the first half of matching a wing-back system up to a 4-2-3-1, because due to the wing-back, the wide centre-half, the wide central midfielder, and even probably the middle centre-half as well, which in this case was Carl McFadzean, they can initiate those overloads defensively. And there were a few cases that I saw watching the game back where Boro were forced back. They were forced back to recycle the ball because Coventry were not letting us in those areas that we are usually good in. And I will say, and I'll reiterate, Boro are usually good even when they're being pressed. And we saw a few instances in the first half of us playing out from the back and getting through that press, and it was really good. But it was a bit sticky in that first half. What I mentioned there about switching the ball, we did that in the second. Paddy McNair was launching some diagonals. It stretched the game, and that's what we needed to do in the first half that we didn't. So it was a better performance from us in that second half versus the first, but we just didn't really have so much of a threat. It was all in and around the edge of the box rather than in it, and I can't remember too many opportunities in that second half. There was a Riley McGree shot that it looked like it was going to catch Ben Wilson out for a second, and it didn't. But I feel like both sides were just happy and content playing the game as it was in the second half. So it turned into a little bit of a handshake occasion in that second 45.
Yeah, it really did, didn't it? But I think when both teams are satisfied with a result, they know they're probably going to play each other again in a few days' time. No one wants the injury, and I think that played a part in a lot of the decision making within the game. I thought there was a lot of safe passes from both sides, and there was a reluctance to make a mistake. Obviously, we did make one, and they went on and scored. But for me, when I was looking at Coventry, and from exactly what you were saying there around, they want try and press in certain areas of the pitch. It would kind of remind me a little bit of like that Red Bull style, a little bit where they try and win it in a counter press in the central area, and then they'll get you on the counter attack because they've got that advantage of players, and they'll go on and score. And I think like you can see it in the average positions, and I've got like an idea of how they wanted to play in that. And Kelly, Hamer, and Eccles were, you got that three in midfield, so you've got that advantage there. But if you look at Coventry in general, they've got 8 players in central areas where Middlesbrough, they're quite similar. We did try and match them. I think we got 7 in there, but they are trying to get Middlesbrough to play in that central area. You've already got the advantage there, so you'll turn over and you'll get a counter attack. So what Boro did probably wrong with Smith was we tried to play in the central area about 3 times. We tried it the same exact pass. Not you maybe just turn around and go backwards. It was let's keep trying to play this same pass. Got caught out. When you've got that advantage in that central area like they did, they were able to counter very well. And that's how they get the goals. And that is how a lot of counter-pressing teams tend to score the goals on the counter. Like they will get it in that central area, play a vertical ball through, and they will go on to score. And also what was interesting as well, with the advantage or with the 3 midfield and the 2 up top, they were always trying to get man for man. And Gyökeres, every time he's trying to pull the defender away, trying to create that space, trying to get that midfielder to come through. Really interesting stuff, and it's an advantage and a disadvantage because it leaves space, in different areas of the pitch. Like when Middlesbrough were on a goal kick, we were able to play out quite comfortably. Stefan was able to bring the ball out in like the central area and just maybe have a little dink or a little pass through to Moat, which was always in that like quarterback space, and we're able to play out. It was comfortable, and that is just a bonus and a pro of how we were setting up, and a negative on how they were setting up. So. It's interesting at times, I think, although football can be a very simple game. I think the more that data and analysis and videos come into it, it's just becoming more advanced, and there's different styles, methodologies, and there's no right or wrong way to play football, which is why which are different to us, their counter-pressing side. We're more probably possession-based with a bit of flavour of counter-pressing us as well. So it's all interesting stuff, Dana. It's all interesting stuff. But obviously, Coventry's high press in the first half. Do you think we can ensure that we don't come undone again by it? Maybe in the playoff matches. How would you think we could do that?
I think we need to look after the ball better. There were a few, and probably within, I'd say, the first 2 minutes, we conceded an attack, and Stefan was forced into a very, very good save. Actually, he got a really strong right hand to Gus Hamer's shot. I'm absolutely butchering the pronunciations of these Coventry players' names. Gus Hamer's shot. Yeah, sorry, I think I was thinking about ham sandwich there, but he was able.
They do look alike, When I see Gustavo Hamer, I just think, wow, you look like a ham sandwich.
Oh dear me! When you say these names in your head, but when you actually verbalize them, it's just completely different. That was me right there. But yeah. Stefan was forced into a really strong save in the opening 2 minutes of the game, I'd say. And it came because of Ryan Giles giving the ball away. And it has been a theme of Boro's trending weaknesses this season, that we give the ball away, we concede attacks. And a lot of the goals that we've conceded have come through those cases. That's one of the things that I think Boro need to improve in the playoff games. We were guilty of giving the ball away quite a lot. I will say as well, Coventry forced us into those mistakes due to their high press and a very aggressive press. They were very much in our faces. But then also that big switch is a really good way to negate a really high pressing team, because you can just stretch them. And that is the way to alleviate a little bit of that pressure. But I suppose when you are getting suffocated as a team and they are right on you as soon as you receive the ball, sometimes it is just difficult to distribute it. But I thought our passing was a bit off in that first half, and we gained a little bit more control due to our ability to look after the ball a lot better in the second. So I think switching the ball is really important against a high pressing team, and also making sure that our passing and our pass selection is spot on, because they will pick you off. And Coventry are a very, very good side in counter-attacking. We were speaking off air, and I was wondering if Coventry were quite high up in the league in terms of goals scored from counter-attacks. They're actually below us. We are top for counter-attacking goals scored on 10. They're below us on 9. And you could tell, because they looked really quick, really incisive, and really, really well drilled on the counter-attack. So they have the ability to pick teams off, as do we. So that game at the CBS on Sunday is going to be very, very interesting.
And what can we take from yesterday's game? I think it's a case of we were feeling each other out, but I would not be surprised. And the one thing I'm going to probably take away from it is I would not be surprised if Boro played pretty long for the first 15-20 minutes against Coventry. And the reason why I say it is atmosphere is pretty tense. they won't be up for it. Just alleviates pressure quite quickly. And for me, I don't think they're amazingly comfortable with the ball. I think their game is probably more dictated around counter pressing and in it itself, and trying to beat Boro on the counter attack, because we do create a lot of space, going forward and back, and we can be transitioned against, like all teams can be. But for me, I think that first 20 minutes, I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't play it short. We just played it long into the channels, try and create an opportunity from a longer goal kick than we would normally when we're trying to control the press and all the way through. And obviously, statistically, you will create a better chance from that. But I wouldn't be surprised if we seen that early doors. And in terms of what else can we take from the game, I thought the second half was just a feeling of both sides trying to understand and test a couple of things for the games in the coming weeks.
Do you think? Sorry, just a point. Do you think we missed Jonny Howson in that game? Because I thought, although Mort has been good, and I thought Hackney was good again yesterday, but we just seemed to lack a little bit of composure that I think Howson would have brought us. And Howson is susceptible to give the ball away, susceptible of getting caught in possession. We've seen that this season, but I just felt like we were missing him yesterday. And just from the eye test, the midfield looked weird without him in it, and it's probably because he's played in pretty much all of our games this season. But yeah, it was just do you think we missed Howson yesterday?
I would say no. And it's interesting. I think yes to the Mowat stuff because he did get caught, but I thought when we brought Balassa on, the control was there. For me, I think if we're on the ball, Balassa's a better footballer in terms of trying to help us probably get up the pitch, but also retain possession of the ball. I think he's very neat, tidy, and also very good at playing the ball forward. So I don't think we missed Howson to some extent, but also I can understand why we would miss him, because he brings in a bit more of aggression to the game, and he can guide probably Hackney a little bit better in certain areas where his head's starting to lose it a little bit, because he is suspect to that Hayden Hackney. But did we miss him? I wouldn't say loads. I thought if he's not fit, I would play Balassa there in the next game just for more of a control side of things. But yeah, not massively. And let's be honest, like Howson's not going to play next season really in the Premier League. If we were to get there, I could see us definitely replacing him or bringing the likes of Balassa into that role. So we're going to have to play with him eventually. Did we miss him too much? No, I wouldn't say it was a huge impactful miss. I think it's natural in by any fan to say that we miss X, Y, and Z when they're not playing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's very off the cuff. Like Howson could have played, and he could have been intercepted by someone. He could have made a bad pass. He might not be in the right area. Like there's so many if buts and maybes in those type of things, and I think it's very. I do think he's important. He's definitely important.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, I think he is very important, and hopefully he's back, because I know there is a few iffy news on injuries. Everything just seems generally up in the air, and everyone thinks Carrick is playing mind games. So who knows who's injured and who isn't? But hopefully Howson's back for the playoffs. There's a narrative there as well. Think about it, Lucas Metcher. Think about it. There's a narrative there with Howson and the playoffs and Boro.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to say it because I'll jinx it. But in terms of more positive news, we scored a set piece, Dana, and what a feeling! Cameron Archer scoring a screamer. We didn't really score screamers, but it sounded really good to say that. I think it's kind of quote of Dance on the Ceiling by Lionel Richie, that. But we'll come on to it. But yeah, 5 goals, 2 assists in his last 6 games. The boy can score goals, and also a set piece, Dynamo. Middlesbrough scored a set piece, a well-worked one of that.
I know. And it was so funny the way that it came about, because Preston fans were kind of taking the mick, wasn't they? Preston. Coventry fans, sorry. Coventry fans were holding the ball. They were giving it the old way. And then all of a sudden we take the corner. It is well worked. It's a good thing that Cameron Archer actually scored, because he blocked Moat's shot initially.
Which was going in.
Yeah, it was goal bound. It was target bound at least. And it counted. Who scored counts that as a set piece goal. So we've now scored a huge 11 goals from set pieces this season, which actually isn't that bad. It's middle of the table, middle of the pack for set piece goals scored this season in championship teams. But we'll take that. That's like being on top of the world. We never score from set pieces, but it was, yeah, we'll take it. It counts, and we'll take it.
Yeah, and it felt like the club will listen to our podcast from last week and maybe a few weeks ago when we were saying short corners are probably the way forward, you know, and we will take full responsibility for that. But it was nice to see us try something a little bit different from the standard whipping the ball in, keeper catching it, or not beating the first man, or beating everyone and going out for a goal kick. And also, it was quite funny that we also spoke about corners in the last podcast, and we went up and scored one. So maybe it was a reverse malt curse. But Dana, you are not off the hook just yet. We have another 2 games against them, and I'm not saying anything more apart from that because I will move on to Darnell Fisher because you aren't going to.
I was going to say something about Cameron Archer. Actually, I was going to say something about Cameron Archer. He had the least amount of touches of anyone that started that game yesterday, and he scored. So clinical Cameron Archer. He does not need that many shots or that many touches. Sorry, he doesn't even need that many shots. To be honest, he's clinical and he's such a good weapon to have in Boro's inventory going into the playoffs. So no, I wasn't going to mention Malkus, but yeah, I'll let you transition to what you were talking about now.
Yeah, all what a feeling, Archer scoring a screamer. Anyway, Darnell Fisher, we'll segue onto that because he returned after since April 2021, and I think it was the end of the COVID season, the 2-1 home defeat to QPR. He's out of contract in the summer, but it was quite a nice moment, wasn't it? Yesterday, I think seeing a player who was being out for so long come back on the pitch, and it is so difficult. You know when you've been injured for a while. And 2 years is an absolute killer. So to have like the mental strength to come back and to get some minutes was really nice. But what do you think? Do you think it was a nice sentimental moment? And do you think we'll see much of him in the next couple of games?
I think it was a nice sentimental moment. It was a freak injury that he picked up at home, I believe it was, and the fact that he's been out for that long is quite crazy, actually, when you think of all the things that have happened in that time. At the end of the COVID season, that feels like a lifetime ago, in all honesty. So it was a really good touch from Carrick. Do I think he's going to be on the bench for the next game? No. Obviously, Dijksteel was suspended, so didn't play a part or wasn't in the matchday squad yesterday. So I do think Dijksteel will take his place. He's out of contract in the summer as Fisher, and I don't think Boro will renew his contract. Sometimes you can see that in football where they give a player a little bit extra time to find fitness and to find a club, but I just don't think that that's going to happen. It was nice to see the players receive that really nicely because they shared a few Instagram stories, the Boro players of Boro's post about Darnell Fisher coming back, and they all seem really happy for him, which just taps into this narrative about the team camaraderie. So yeah, it was a really nice touch.
They're just a nice bunch of lads. Sounds very Tony Pulis thing to say.
It does. Go and get your milk, Johnny.
Yeah, I'll go to South Wales because it reminds me a lot of Teesside. But yeah, in more of in good news, Chuba Golden Boot winner as well. That the first place since John Higton in the 1971 season. I think if my maths is correct, is that 52 years ago?
I am not the one to be asking about maths.
Well, I'll quick maths it, and I think that's 52. So 1971 season. I am tired. It's been a long day. But since John Higton of all players, so how mad is that? To be honest, to see a footballer who was out in the cold. We left him outside, and we didn't want to let him into his house. We
left him with the milk.
Left him with the milk, and we just said, "You're not coming in," and then we let him in, and now he scores 28 goals this season, and fantastic to see as well. Obviously, we didn't expect that, but how mad is it? We've got a striker, Darnell, who has scored over 28 goals, and if he scores 2 more, he's hit the magic 30 as well, which is even more insane.
Yeah, it's a massive shame that they don't count as league goals. They count as other, which is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, we'll count them as league goals too, but don't worry. But honestly, his story this season, I never get bored of hearing about it or talking about it because he really was not fancied at all. And it was a real sliding doors moment, wasn't it? That we had all of this talk about Jorgen Strand-Larsen, about Victor Gyökeres. We had two strikers at the point in which Chuba was brought back into the fold for that Marseille game, Coburn and Watmore. And he has taken his opportunity and then some. His name stands above all of the others in the Championship, and there's some very good strikers in the Championship. You've got Gyökeres himself, you've got Nathan Teller of Burnley, you've got Carlton Morris of Luton. They've all had fantastic seasons, but they haven't had as good a season as Chuba Akpom, and he's just such a lovely guy as well. Honestly, hearing him speak just brings a smile on my face. I am so overjoyed for him. I really am. I'm absolutely over the moon. I really hope that he can get 30 in all competitions. He's only one off it because of the goal that he scored against Brighton in the Cup. But just looking at his statistics throughout the course of this season, bearing in mind, he spent a month and a half out injured after scoring twice against Sheffield United in August. He's got an XG of 21.9. He's overperforming that by 6 goals, which is always good to see, because last season we had Andres Barra, who was very much underperforming. He was one of the most underperforming strikers in the Championship last season, Andres Barra, along with Cauley Woodrow, then of obviously Barnsley. He's in the top 4% for goals per 90. He's in the top 2% for goals per shot. Cameron Archer, by the way, ranks first for goals per shot, 0.3. Akpom and Aaron Ramsey are on 0.26. They're third. Yeah, they're joint third. He's in the top 6% for XG per 90, so he's finding himself in good goal scoring positions. And get this, his longest goal scoring drought under Michael Carrick, he's currently enduring it, actually, 2 games.
Get rid of him.
Games.
Get rid of him.
Yeah,
Not
he's
good enough.
shite. But 2 games, and that's it. He's cranked up his footballing quality to another level, and it's the most satisfying and wholesome thing to see a player that's much maligned, that has constantly been prodded at in terms of, they've never fulfilled their potential, to finally see them fulfill that potential. And I swear, I have dragged my eyes through shit watching some of the strikers that have played for Boro for my 14 years watching this football club. I am so happy that we've got Chuba, that we've got Archer, we've got Force. It's just incredible. So well done, Chuba. I absolutely love you to bits. And I'll stop.
Well, there you go. Congratulations, Chuba. You have won the round of applause.
You've made my life. You've made my life.
What a sad little life did.
I'm catching strays over here. I'm going to cry now.
I'm joking, but it is a fantastic achievement. And to be fair, Cameron Archer as well, his record's just even better.
11 goals since January. That's crazy.
Imagine if he was here for the full season. That would have been absolutely insane. But he can still play a pivotal role in the next few games. And obviously now the playoffs then are upon us, and Millwall dropped out when they were 3-1 up. Duncan Watmore got 2 as well, I believe, which was just madness. And I've seen a couple of videos of Millwall fans celebrating, saying, we can't bottle it now, and they did, which was quite funny. And then Sunderland somehow wormed their way in with some absolute worldies. And I know we don't really want to watch Sunderland highlights, but the Hallows goal's an absolute screamer. But yeah, they somehow got there, which is a bit annoying. And there's so many positions changing in a playoff bonanza. But it finishes, Dana, Luton 3rd, Boro 4th, Coventry 5th, and Sunderland 6th. Are you happy with how it's ended up, really? Would you have took that at the start of the season?
Well, no, because Sunderland are in the top 6. But I'm happy that we're facing Coventry, because firstly, I think it's going to be a good game. I feel a little bit bad that I remember when we spoke about the playoff picture a few podcasts ago, I remember saying, and we haven't even spoke about Coventry, because they weren't really in my thinking, I'm not going to lie. So that was really bad on my part. They are a really good team. I don't really want to purr so much about our direct opponents in the next 2 games, but they're a very, very well drilled team, and I think it's going to be a good matchup between 2 good footballing sides. But yeah, I was not happy that Sunderland got into the top 6. I can't lie, especially after telling my friend Grundy that they will not get there. He made sure that I knew about that. But yeah, there was a bit of a nervous energy at the Riverside yesterday, not just from the Coventry fans. Yeah, Coventry. I don't know why I keep mixing Coventry and Preston. I have to really think about that. But it wasn't just from them. I think it was from Boro fans as well. Certainly around me, everyone was trying to get signal on their phone, which is just not going to happen at the Riverside. And they were checking the current state of play. At one point, it was like, "Yep, Millwall, cool, whatever, we'll play them." And then I just so wish that Sunderland wouldn't get in there, but they have. And they could be dark horses in this race. They're in really good form. They've got a good team. Can't lie. I hate the fact that I'm saying it. They haven't really missed Ross Stewart. So you never know. The playoffs is just going to be so interesting. But happy that we're playing Coventry. Let's bring it on. That was very Ted Lasso.
Yeah, believe. And it's going to be an interesting.
Let's bring it on. Sorry.
Yeah, come on the Boro. Come on the Boro, yeah. But yeah, I can see us doing quite well in the playoffs semis. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I think it'll be a completely different game than what we've seen at the start of the season. We obviously Wilder's last game, and then the game on Monday. There'll be two different games. It's going to be tense. I'm very interested to see how we do on Sunday. It's Sunday, yeah. It's Sunday. I feel like the bank holiday has completely ruined my days. I have no idea where I'm at. And yeah, I think we'll do well. I think it's going to be a completely different game, but also I think it's going to be a game where if we can get out of that first 20-minute spell and then starting to play how we know to play, trying to create those false transitions, getting into good areas and creating chances like we have done for the majority of the season, I think we can get a really good result there. But it's going to be difficult. I think they're a really good side, Coventry, and Mark Robbins has been on my radar, really, and Coventry have been for a number of seasons. I think you have to date back a few probably season preview podcasts where I'm just praising Coventry a lot, and I think they nearly got and they had quite a quiet season. And then they've just kept going and building and building. And to be fair to Robbins, like he's got a shoestring budget. Like I think the last time they paid fee, I think was for Gyökeres. I think it was about £1 million or something silly like that. £1 million
or Hamer, right?
Yeah,
I think Hamer came after Gyökeres. That might be wrong there, sure.
Yeah. There's that. They've played away from the stadium for the last couple of seasons. They're in a good moment right now, and fair play to them. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for them. But I just hope we beat them over 180 minutes and then go to Wembley, which I would hope we get revenge of avenge. Sorry, get revenge. We get revenge and avenge the Wembley curse. But in terms of injuries, Dan Carrick said that none of the Boro's injury players are particularly close to returning. Mind games, or do you think he is just telling us how it is?
I have no idea. Although I'd like to hope that they're all just available, because people have asked us to answer the question of which one do you want back the most. I can't answer that because I want them all back. I'm greedy and I want them all back because it is such a squad game. And I know it's very cliche, but Carrick has drilled that message out in the press throughout his entire time at the helm so far. And no one player is more important than another, in my opinion. So I'd like to hope that they're back, but even if a couple of them come back, I'd be quietly happy about that. But yeah, it's not great, is it, to lose those players at the point in which we did, Ramsey and Fry, and I know McGree's back, but losing McGree at that point as well, and whoever else is injured, I've lost track. Oh, Marcus Forss as well. He's really important because he's had playoff experience.
How can you forget my finish delight? You know?
I know, he's supremely underrated as well, Marcus Forss. I don't really hear a lot of praise about him, but he's such a good player. He's such a good player on that right-hand side. And as I said, he's got playoff experience. I don't know how much weight that holds, but I do feel like it might be important just for that experience of knowing that type of occasion. So fingers crossed, it is just a massive smokescreen and Carrick is playing those mind games. But I don't feel like he is.
Yeah, I think if there was one player for me that I would like Marcus Foss because I just love him. I think he's a superstar. But in terms of moving on, then let's go on to questions then, because each week you get the chance to send us your questions, and it's via Twitter at Boro_breakdown. You can email us at theborobreakdown@hotmail.com, or you can join our free Telegram chat with over 320 Boro fans in there, chatting sometimes about Boro, sometimes chatting about other things, maybe Wobbly Goblin, maybe chips and curry. You get the chance to speak about all things Boro. It's all fun and games. But the first question, and it's from Tom Parker at Bradley, and he says, though we can argue we are not playing at 100% because we haven't needed to, are you worried we may be dropping off and won't be our best in the playoffs? Dana, what do you think?
I don't think we need to be at our best. We just need to be good enough to get through the playoffs, and I'm not concerned. I do think Boro will turn it on in the playoffs because they have to, and I
hope
do.
so.
Yeah. we quite simply have to. If we don't, and if we play how well, I will say, over the past few games, we have come undone because of external factors, i.e., the referees. And Carrick said something in his pre-Coventry press conference that I just really want to play because I think it's important regarding momentum.
I think any game you want to play well first and foremost. You want to play well and win. There's a time when winning is a little bit more important than the performance, and I think over time, we've had a good level of performance over the last couple of weeks. In some ways, the level of performance and the standard of play and the energy levels is once we knew we were in the playoffs was vital that we kept that. The results haven't been exactly what we wanted, of course they haven't, but there's a couple of decisions have been key in that as well. But ultimately that won't tell us the story at the end. That's why the performance levels in training and in the games, which we've been pretty pleased about, will give us the confidence knowing what we're capable of, and boys can't forget that of what they're capable of, and they've shown that anyway generally in the performances. So I think we're just excited and looking forward to what's ahead.
So he said that momentum in performances is sometimes more important than result momentum, and he's so right in saying that, because I think although we haven't been at full quality capacity in recent weeks, because remember, we haven't had to be, we've known our playoff fit for a while. In my opinion, we've shown more good than bad. If Boro were playing terribly, really, really, really badly and not getting results, I'd be far more worried. But I just feel like we will be much better in the playoffs, and we might not be at our best, but as I said, we don't need to be. We just need to be a little bit better. I do think that we've dropped below our standards, I will say, but I'll also say I don't think we've been terrible. So I'm not worried. I think maybe that's naive for me, but I believe and I have full confidence in this team that they will turn it on against Coventry.
Yeah, and I think with people getting worried, I think they look at points and they go, I think because you can measure points, you can kind of say, oh well, we're not a good side, or we're out of form or whatever. But and also performances and technical results are quite hard to measure. I appreciate you got underlying metrics which you'll look at and stuff like that, but obviously the eye test and those combination of things, we've been relatively quite good and strong. And obviously the refereeing decisions in the Luton game probably win 1-0 really if there's VAR. You've got the Rotherham game. Is it a red card? Probably not. Probably gets overturned. I think Boro go on and win that game. If you're in the Premier League, obviously these have happened now, but it's theoretical. And then yesterday against Coventry, one mistake, you get punished, which is a bit of a rarity in the Championship. Let's be honest. You get punished, and we still brought it back. We still created chances. We came on in the second half and shown what we can do, and we start to be a bit more on it and start to press forward. And I think we can be quite good. I think there's going to be some. If you can't get excited for these games and you can't play at your top level, then you shouldn't be playing football really. And I feel like we will be. And I think we'll be excited. I think we're raring to go, and I'm hoping we put in a really good performance in the first leg and the second as well, and then hopefully go Wembley way. Great. And then the next question is from Tom Muldown. He says, "Who would you start at right back in the playoffs?" Smith, I'm assuming Dykesdale or Fisher or Jonny Howson, or I'm trying to think of other people we could put there.
Matt Crooks.
Matt Crooks, he could play there. I think probably Zach Steffen could play right back, to be honest.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
So who would you start, Dee? Who would you like to start at right back?
I would probably say Smith. I don't think he's done enough wrong to be replaced in that side. I know in the past 2 games, Rotherham and then against Coventry, he gave the ball away that led to the goal. I think it's worth mentioning and really important to note that he wasn't the sole reason why those 2 goals happened. So I think Smith, I know that Dykesdale has the recovery pace and he might be a little bit better one-on-one, in my opinion, defensively. But Smith stays there for me. He's earned his place. It's a shame that Dykesdale got sent off when he really shouldn't have been against Rotherham, because that was a really tough time for him, because Smith was injured, of course, and Dykesdale came in to replace Smith, and now it's gone back to Smith being in the team with Dykesdale. Not you would assume, but I would probably go with Smith. Plus, I think Smith's crossing ability is better than Dykesdale's. When you have Dykesdale in the team, offensively, he's probably a better foil for Jones. Them two can link up together really well. But if you want that extra dimension of somebody on that right-hand side that can whip a decent ball in, I think Smith. He put in a good one yesterday, but nobody attacked it. He's put a good one in against Preston, and Chuba scored from it. I think I'm right in remembering that. So I feel like his crossing ability is better, and he is still a good defender, and he's experienced as well, and I think that's important too.
Yeah. I do prefer Dykesdale, but I feel like it's
same.
I agree with you on the Smith argument. For me, like Dykesdale, and I probably need to have a look at the underlying metrics on it, but I feel like he's more of a progressive right back and who's more willing to run forward with the ball and will create like an overlap in action. Whereas Smith's a bit more steady and will like to cross it a little bit more. So you get it's pros and cons, right? It depends what we want to bring into the game. I think you've got good replacements in Smith and Dykesdale. I think it's entirely up to Carrick on what he wants to do, but I probably prefer Dykesdale. But I feel like I'm a bit of a narrative spinner on Dykesdale anyway, because I've been absolutely in love with him over like the last couple of years. But you know, he's great. Last question, D, it's from Sean. He says, if yesterday's squad is what we have available for the playoff matches, would you still have us favourites to go up against the other hopefuls? And that comes from the bookies saying that Middlesbrough are favourites to go up from the playoffs this season. It is very tight though in terms of the odds, but Middlesbrough just edge it. So would you say that we are the favourites still with the squad available?
I actually disagree. I think Luton are the favourites. They're the 3rd place team. They're in better form than us. So I think they should be favourites, really. And something that you mentioned on, I think it was the last podcast, Luton can't really play off this underdog mentality anymore because they're not. So that's going to be really interesting, because I feel like that's propelled them, along with good football and good working behind the scenes, of course. That's propelled them, or one of the factors that's propelled them to where they are now, because they can really hone in on that. And when you have that confidence of everyone on the outside is saying you're going to fall off and that you're not worthy of being where you are, you know, the whole team's like Luton narrative. People can, like when you're inside a club, I guess I would assume that you can really work off that. You know, you hear so many stories in Amazon documentaries and media like that, where managers will pin things on the wall in the dressing room and use that as a way to galvanize the team. So anyway, bit of a tangent. I still think that Boro are a good team, even despite the injuries, and we've got really good squad depth and quality in the squad depth, that when a Alex Moore and a Dan Barlas have come into the team, they've played well. So I'd be confident, even with the injuries that we have unfortunately picked up, that we can certainly give a better account of ourselves than the last time that we were in the playoffs, for Christ's sake, but that we can also just be good anyway. I wouldn't be too knocked that we've got injuries, although it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, and it's the Sky Sports narratives there already, isn't it? Like the lowest attendances in Luton with a small stadium against the biggest stadium in the Championship in Sunderland. It's obviously they're going to say that narrative, and I think it's a bit of gaslighting, really. But it's like Luton are favourites, really. Like they should be favourites where they finished. You know, they've got a good squad, good players, and especially in Carl Morris, who we both really enjoy watching. Apart from his Tom Daly type dive.
Yeah.
But I'm past that now. But look, they're favourites. Like I think if you see any of that on like social, like Luton, you guys, you know, no excuses really. You finished third, so third best team goes up, right? So sorry, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see that. I think there's no pressure on Boro at all. I think naturally media darlings Middlesbrough because of Michael Carrick, and it's going to be natural. You know, whenever a former player who's established as Carrick becomes a manager, they're obviously going to get that sort of affection. Happens all the time. Frank Lampard's Derby, Wayne Rooney's Derby, Michael Carrick's Middlesbrough. Like, it always happens, you know. Steven Gerrard's Rangers, you know. It's all swings and roundabouts. But yeah, I don't think we're favourites. I think Luton are favourites, and be interested to see how they handle the pressure in the coming games. But let's move on to the praise and place, Dana, because the praise and place is the place where to give praise to a player, coach and staff, a chip van that serves chips and curry, which wasn't there in the last game, which was a bit of disappointment. So they're not in the praise and place this week.
No.
But who's in the praise and place for you, Dana?
I'm going to mention two, probably three players. Firstly, is who gets my 3 stars would be Darrell Lenihan. I thought he marshalled Victor Gyökeres incredibly well in that game, and statistically won 3 of his 4 tackles, 6 clearances, 2 interceptions, 7 recoveries. He just looked really good, did Lenihan, up against a really good striker in Gyökeres one-on-one. Both he and Paddy McNair, I think, did really well together. So I actually want to put our centre-back partnership in there. Paddy McNair, not as good as Lenihan, but still I think he's worthy of praise. And then I want to mention Zach Steffen as well, because that save that I mentioned at the top of the pod was a really, really good one. It was a ferocious shot from Gus Harmer. So I think Zach Steffen, and he played sweeper keeper as well when Gyökeres looked like he was bearing down on goal. He might just nick there ahead of Zach Steffen. You know, he slid on his little bum and got it. And it was just a really solid performance from Zach Steffen, who seems to be earning a lot more praise, and his critics have definitely quietened down a little bit. So, yeah, 3 in the praise and place there for me.
Wait, who? Zach Steffen?
Steffen, Paddy McNair, Lenihan.
Oh, sorry, I missed the Paddy McNair comment. I do apologise. I was like, is that 2 people? Well, yeah, I was intently listening as well, and I was like, I still missed it. Anyway, mine is Darrell Lenihan. I think he was tremendous yesterday, and he's been tremendous for the majority of the season. Probably arguably the signing of the year. Really, I think you can make a really good argument for it. Really solid, really good leadership qualities, and we've got a really good player in Darrell Lenihan, and it was a good bit of business from Boro as well. And you can kind of see why the former manager and Chris Waldo really wanted him. Because he brings so many different traits, and credit to him being fantastic again, and a future Boro captain in my eyes. But Dana, thank you very much for joining me as always, and to listeners and the viewers, thank you very much for listening and watching us, and help us share and grow this podcast by giving it a 5-star rating on your podcast provider. Subscribe to the channel, share the video, like it, share it with your friends, do all that kind of fun stuff, because this podcast is continuing to grow, and it's all because of you guys that are listening. So thank you very much for that. But for right now, we've got, actually not for right now, because we have a playoff preview coming up this week, which is very exciting. So do get tuned in for that. But for right now, there's nothing to separate Boro and Coventry, but something's got to give on the road to Wembley. Let the playoffs commence. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and that was our Boro Match Day chatter in a pod. Up the Boro Breakdown.